Adelaide's morning news with Mike Smithson starts now.
Good morning and welcome. First to an overnight tragedy at Glenelg, Marina, and a young man is today fighting for life after plunging into shallow water. Casey Trelaw is there. Casey, what happened?
Mike, the young man was with a group of friends when he jumped off the weir behind me here at the Marina pier shortly after 8:30 last night. Now, it appears he misjudged the depth of the water and has suffered serious neck injuries. This morning, he remains in an induced coma. Now, witnesses say a friend tried to jump in after him before emergency crews rushed to the scene. He was pulled from the water, and a witness has told us for some time paramedics were performing CPR on him in a dinghy. He had to be treated with great care due to life-threatening injuries. He was then rushed to the Royal Adelaide Hospital in a serious condition where he remains. Now, this incident comes as no surprise to some locals around here who've told us they're sick of telling off young people for diving in this area. So we'll bring you more details on the man's condition in our news at 4 and 6 tonight. Back to you.
Thanks, Casey. Now to a developing story, and emergency crews are this morning at the scene of a serious crash near Jamestown. Police say a car hit a tree just after 9 o'clock. An occupant has suffered life-threatening injuries. Wilkins Highway remains closed. Neighbours have told how they tried to put out a fire that claimed the life of a man at Morfettville. Tim Hatfield is there, and Tim, what's happened?
Good morning, Mike. Fire crews rushed here to Claines Avenue around 6 o'clock last night. They were able to fairly quickly contain the blaze to the top story of this unit. However, they then discovered a man's body inside, believed to be the 64-year-old occupant of the home. Neighbours had tried to douse the flames with their hoses, fearing he was inside. Despite their efforts, though, he could not be saved. Here's what some of them had to say this morning.
I just heard this loud explosion. I thought it was my son, watching YouTube and everything like that. I've come outside and I've noticed flames and stuff out the bedroom window and fire trucks. As to what caused it, I have no idea.
Saw a large gathering just across the road, and one of our neighbours was putting the fire out with his hose. So shortly after, the firemen arrived and tried to take over the scene. But pretty much all we saw was black flames coming out the top window.
Oh, that's sad.
Now, other friends have told us the victim was a kind and generous man who often took people in. However, they don't believe anybody else was living at the property at the time. They've also told us that the man had recently been given 90 days to leave the property, and we understand that a care provider had been engaged to try and find him another home. Police, though, say there are no suspicious circumstances around this fire. Mike?
Thanks for that, Tim. And police are investigating a fire that tore through a home at Windsor Gardens. The blaze broke out inside the unoccupied Cooks Road home around 3 this morning. Fire crews managed to stop the flames spreading to neighbouring homes. Crime scene investigators have attended the scene. Adelaide's brand new COVID-positive medi-hotel is open and ready to accommodate anyone struck down with the virus. Mark Mooney joins us from outside Tom's Court, and Mark, the hotel remains empty.
Yeah, it does, Mike. In fact, there's been little movement here this morning, despite the facility officially opening its doors for the first time. But there's a good chance some of these international arrivals will be among the first people to be transferred here. Our cameras were at the Stanford Plaza on North Terrace last night as the latest plane load of returned citizens arrived from Doha to begin their quarantine stint. If any of them test positive, they will be transferred by ambulance here to Tom's Court Hotel. The results of their day one tests will be known tomorrow, so we could see the first patients arriving here within 24 hours. There are 72 rooms over 13 floors, so to begin with, only one room per floor will be used to ensure infected guests are kept as separated as possible. SA Health says the ventilation is hospital standard to minimise the risk of airborne transmission, and security is extremely tight, as you would expect, with CCTV cameras trained on every single door.
Now, this is critical for reducing movement on the floor, and we know that has been a key factor in the outbreaks interstate.
It delivers what we believe is the best model in Australia for the management of COVID-positive people.
We do have 3 active cases in South Australia, but those patients will stay at the Pullman Hotel and complete their quarantine there. 2 of them have the highly transmissible UK and South African variants, so authorities clearly don't want to risk exposing anyone during an unnecessary transfer. Mike.
Thanks, Mark. We'll hear more from you during the day. Well, another royal baby's on the way, with Harry and Meghan revealing they're expecting their 2nd child later this year. US correspondent David Woywood has more.
Good morning. Yes, happy news here for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Meghan and Harry confirming that baby number 2 is on the way. They made the announcement through a spokesperson in a statement today, saying, "We can confirm that Archie is going to be a big brother." The Duke and Duchess of Sussex are overjoyed to be expecting their 2nd child. This picture of the happy couple was also released, a beaming portrait of the expected parents at their Californian home. It's unclear when Meghan is due. Their joy following last year's heartbreak, however, the Duchess of Sussex revealing her miscarriage in a deeply personal piece for the New York Times. But today, their joy clear, set to be parents again, and for baby Archie, now nearly 2 years old.
Look, a duck. That's not a duck, that's a rabbit. Yeah, can you turn the...
A baby brother or sister is on the way. Today also bittersweet for Harry. 37 years ago to the day since Princess Diana announced her pregnancy with Prince Harry to the world. But not all are on board with the young couple who, after winning a court battle this week to protect their privacy, went public. One British tabloid leading with, "Publicity-shy woman tells 7.67 billion people I'm pregnant." The Queen and Duke of Edinburgh reportedly knew about the pregnancy, but caught off guard with the announcement, have since offered their congratulations. This, Prince Charles's 5th grandchild and the Queen's 10th great-grandchild.
A Kent Town woman will front court today, charged with leading police on a wild chase in a stolen pizza delivery car. Police say the 24-year-old, who doesn't hold a licence, drove on the wrong side of Tapley's Hill Road during the high-speed joyride early yesterday. And South Australian horse trainer Christopher Begg is expected to front a magistrate this morning, charged with assault. The 35-year-old is accused of choking his partner. Senior Labor figures say the government has some questions to answer over the alleged rape of a young woman at Parliament House. A former Liberal Party staffer claims she was sexually assaulted by a colleague in 2019. Political reporter Olivia Leeming has more from Canberra.
These disturbing allegations have been made by a former media advisor for Defence Minister Linda Reynolds. Brittany Higgins was just 24 years old when she alleges she was sexually assaulted by a Liberal Party colleague in the Minister's office at Parliament House in March 2019. The accused resigned shortly after. Ms Higgins says she was asked to attend a meeting with Linda Reynolds to discuss the incident in the same office where the alleged rape occurred, which a government spokesperson has since conceded was a mistake.
I told him to stop.
Did he?
No.
How many times would you estimate you said to him to stop?
I felt like it was like on a loop endlessly. At least half a dozen. I was crying the whole way through it.
I think we need to hear from the Minister, Linda Reynolds. This is an assault that occurred in her office. There are questions about whether or not this young woman was pressured to choose between her job and reporting the matter to police.
ACT Police have told 7 News they received a report in April 2019. The complainant chose not to proceed with making a formal complaint. If the victim wishes to proceed, they'll assess the case and make a decision about whether there's sufficient evidence. Ms Higgins says she ultimately chose not to make a complaint to protect the party and her job. The investigation remains open.
Seven West Media has announced a landmark deal with Google, with the tech giant set to pay for news. With more on this significant development, here's Network Finance Editor Gemma Acton.
Good morning. Well, we don't have many details yet, but Google and Seven West Media now have 30 days to thrash out the specifics of the deal. Under the agreement, Google will pay Seven for content that appears on its News Showcase platform. It comes just in the nick of time for Google, with the government's news media bargaining code headed for the Senate as early as tomorrow and expected to become law within weeks. It's believed, but not confirmed, that if Google demonstrates it can strike deals on its own, the government may exempt the technology giant from the new legislation. Facebook is the other major technology platform caught by the code, and Treasurer Josh Frydenberg says he held discussions with its founder Mark Zuckerberg over the weekend. Google News Showcase launched earlier this month with a handful of local publishers already signed up.
Authorities are bracing for a challenging week ahead with more extreme weather forecasts. We'll tell you what's in store. Hard break for the owner of this multi-million-dollar luxury yacht, and another major sporting event on COVID's chopping block. That's coming up next. Thanks for joining us for 7's Morning News live from our Adelaide studios. Early risers were treated to a beautiful morning for a coffee in the sun down at the bay, where it's currently 27 degrees. Even some local marine life popped up for some rays. Great sight there. And with Adelaide about to cop a burst of summer heat, authorities will be on high alert. Extra surf lifesavers will be patrolling our beaches to keep swimmers safe, with the rescue helicopter also on standby, of course. Meanwhile, the CFS is monitoring conditions closely and says crews will be at the ready given the heightened fire risk. Temperatures are expected to hover in the low to mid-30s until at least Saturday. Now, moving right along, and two people are lucky to be alive after their yacht became engulfed by flames in a Sydney marina. This morning, the vessel burst into a fireball just after 4. The extensive damage has caused it to sink to the seafloor. 2 people were on the boat at the time. They were taken to hospital for smoke inhalation. Police are investigating the cause. Team 18 has unveiled their new colours ahead of the start of the supercars race. We're going to have that story a bit later. But Australia's reimposed hotel quarantine for New Zealand travellers bursting the border bubble. As Bianca Stone reports, it comes after Auckland was plunged into lockdown.
Good morning. A fresh outbreak of COVID-19 in the New Zealand community has led to the trans-Tasman bubble bursting. 3 people from the same household in Auckland have tested positive. A 4th is showing symptoms but has so far returned a negative test. That's forced all of Auckland into a 3-day lockdown. As a result, health authorities here in Australia held an urgent late-night meeting where it was decided to declare New Zealand a red zone. What that effectively means is for the next 72 hours, anyone arriving here in Australia from New Zealand must go into 14 days of mandatory hotel quarantine. Professor Paul Kelly, the Australian Chief Medical Officer, says that it will now be up to the states to decide how to manage those people who have already arrived from New Zealand in the past few days to see if they pose a risk. Another meeting will be held later today to see if any more steps need to be taken.
Treasurer Josh Frydenberg has hinted the federal government is considering permanently increasing the job seeker subsidy. The government has been under pressure to increase the base rate of the payment when the COVID supplement ends next month.
We effectively doubled the safety net during the course of the pandemic. That really helped those on lower incomes. That has been tapering down over recent months. That ends in March, and at that point we will make a decision and an announcement about that future rate.
New data reveals the number of workers on JobKeeper halved from September to December. The countdown's on for the arrival of the Pfizer vaccine, with doses on track to be delivered here within the next 48 hours. 80,000 doses are being exported from Belgium under a very tight security operation. The first doses will be administered to quarantine and border workers, frontline healthcare employees and aged care staff and residents. The father of pop star Nicki Minaj has been killed in a hit-run crash in New York. Robert Minaj was walking along a road on Long Island when a car ploughed into him before it took off. The 64-year-old died at the scene. The singer hasn't yet made a public statement about her father's death. Residents in northeastern Japan are cleaning up after a strong earthquake struck the country's east coast. The huge tremor injured more than 100 people, caused a landslide near a major highway and left 1 million homes without power. Experts are warning of possible aftershocks. Strict quarantine rules could cost Australia one of its premier surfing events. Tamara Bao has that story.
Well, Queensland's strict quarantine rules could cost the state dearly once again. The Corona Open, formerly known as the Quicksilver Pro, has called the Gold Coast home since the late 1990s, but we now understand that the World Surf League is shopping that event around to other states that are more cashed up from Queensland after it asked the state government to foot the hotel quarantine bill for its surfers and their entourage, but the state government said no, which is why it is looking further afield at places like New South Wales, which is understood to have millions of dollars set aside to lure events there during the pandemic. At the moment, the WSL does have the Corona Open listed as tentative on its website, but we do hope to have a definitive answer around whether or not that event will go ahead here in the near distant future. Obviously, tourism operators are desperate to keep the event here. It does inject millions of dollars into the local economy every single year.
Next in 7 News Sport with Theodoropoulos and a couple of key Crows nearing a return ahead of a crucial internal clash this weekend. And NASCAR mayhem, lucky drivers somehow escape injury after a massive 16-car pile-up.
Good morning. Well, star crow Tom Doedee will take a big step towards round one when he rejoins full training this week after overcoming a bit of groin soreness. Paul Seedsman should play in Saturday's internal trial after battling some minor hamstring tightness. Port Adelaide key defender Trent McKenzie should be available for the Powers' internal clash against the Crows in 2 weeks' time, along with Tyson Goldsack, who's been eased back into training. Well, Novak Djokovic has pushed through injury to reach his 300th Grand Slam match with a win. The world number one showed signs of discomfort in his 4-set defeat of Canadian Milos Raonic, but wouldn't reveal the extent of his chest injury.
Well, there was no preparation basically for this match. I used every single hour that I had since I finished the last match against Taylor to recover.
The Serbian now takes on Alexander Zverev in tomorrow's quarter-final. Well, some of Aussie cricket's biggest stars are in action in the One Day Cup competition. James Pattinson got Victoria off to a flyer against New South Wales in Sydney. The Blues were reeling at 2 for 6 and in desperate need of a Steve Smith rescue mission. A short time ago, they were 4 for 156, with Smith 62 not out. And India will take a 249-run lead into day 3 of the second test against England after dismissing the tourists for 134 in their first innings. Well, Manchester United has blown the chance to close the gap between arch rivals and ladder leaders Manchester City following a 1-1 draw against West Brom. After falling behind early on, the Red Devils squared things off late in the first half. Still reeling from their midweek FA Cup loss to Southampton, Wolves made a dramatic comeback with a 2-1 win over the Saints. Well, Team 18 has unveiled its new colours ahead of the start of the 2021 Supercars season. It's hoped Mark Winterbottom and Scott Pye will help the team have a winning season.
This year we want wins, we want podiums and that elusive win for the team. And I think with these two drivers we can do it.
You can catch all the Supercars action live and free right here on 7. And it took only 15 laps for the Daytona 500 to have its first big one. A massive crash involving 16 drivers brought the race to a standstill.
Oh, the 24's on his side.
The drama didn't stop there. A lightning storm just minutes later caused further delays. Thankfully, no drivers were hurt in the pile-up. Smitho, looks a bit like South Road on its best day.
It was nasty, wasn't it? Yes, you're right there. Thanks for that, Theo. Well, we're in for a hot week. Up next, I'll have the latest on how the summer scorch is shaping up. Taking a look at the day's weather now, and we're expecting a lovely sunny top of 30 degrees in the city, and it's looking much the same for the rest of the state too. 35 in Roxby Downs and Port Augusta, 26 in Port Lincoln, 23 in the Riverland, 23 in Robe, and reaching 27 in Mount Gambier. Interstate today and 30 and partly cloudy in Brisbane, windy with showers in Sydney. Sunny in Melbourne and a hot top of 37 for Perth back home. And summer's arrived for the week. We're in for a warm one, sunny and 33 degrees tomorrow, up to 36 on Wednesday and Thursday, 35 on Friday, and then cooling off slightly for the weekend. Well, that's all from the morning news team. I'll be back with our next bulletin at 4. Then Jane will bring you the very latest at 6 o'clock. But from me, it's bye for now.